Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Up From the Depths 50K celebration stream. I'm your host. It's good to see you all here today. Of course, I see all our familiar faces: Skadu, Supremacy, Kaijusaurus, Art of Ash. Hello, Gojira and Bowser Boys. How's everybody doing today? It's day 2 of 2021. We've got a new year, fresh start. Hopefully things will be better than the last year. Nice Godzilla gifts at the top, thank you. I like my dancing Gojis. What's up, Alex Rogers? Kaiju says that you look like Steve Rogers from Infinity War. I mean, I guess I'll take that as a compliment. Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. I'm glad everybody that's here can make it. Greetings to you, Triangle Jira 93. Thank you, Childish Landino. I appreciate that. Yep, we made it to 50,000 subscribers. Never thought I'd be here, to be honest. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I figured, 50K is probably a good time to do a face reveal. I mean, technically I've had my face in camera like twice, I think, in previous streams, but I figured I'd do a formal reveal here. Oh, you like my level? Yeah. I started it like an hour ago. It still hasn't started lavaing up yet. Takes a while. Yeah, I've had that one since I was a kid. It's a volcano dinosaur lava lamp. Proud to be one of those 50K. Thank you, Skedu. What type of microphone am I using? It's a Samson, I think. Yeah, I wore a special shirt for the occasion. Famous Monsters. Thank you, S Chain. So I figured I'm not gonna be playing any games for this stream because I figured I'd just kind of chat with you guys for I don't know a few hours. My plan is to do a tier ranking because I've gotten requests to do that a lot, and I'm gonna actually show off my old Godzilla VHS collection, the one that I accumulated when I was a child. I thought that would be pretty fun. Any plans to do a top 10 worst kaiju? I don't know, maybe. I do have a top 10 planned for when I start formally uploading again, so you guys can look forward to that within the coming weeks. Gotten a little behind on schedule with in the past month, to be honest, but we'll see. Did you watch the marathon on Comet TV yesterday? No, I didn't. I've actually been kind of busy these recent weeks. I actually just got done shoveling for the second time in the last 3 days. So we got a bunch of snow dumped on us out here. You including Gamera movies in the tier rankings? Nah, it's just Godzilla. I'm prepared for 2020 to be worse than 2020. Probably a good assumption to make, to be honest. Thank you, Rishu Shai. Appreciate that. How was my New Year's? Pretty uneventful, but good. I've been enjoying my vacation. It's been too long without a Gamera movie. Yeah, it definitely. How did I bring in the new year? It was pretty low key. I didn't do any major celebrating or anything like that, especially with everything going on. Corona's had a mutation in England. Is much more infectious. Yeah, I've heard about that. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, we're not here to talk about Corona though, so I figured we'd start with showing off my VHS collection because I'm kind of excited to go through this again because, in the age of digital and everything, it's kind of and DVDs don't really use my VHSs anymore, so it's gonna be fun to kind of go back and look at them. I got them in a nice big box over here. I'm not gonna show it to you guys because it's kind of big, but we're just gonna start from the top. And first off, I'm gonna start with I don't know if there are any youngins in this stream, but back before streaming and even DVDs, we had these things called VHS tapes, and they're these rectangular things that you put in VHS players, and you actually had to fast forward and rewind if you wanted to get to certain places. Very, very, very archaic compared to nowadays. What are my hopes for Godzilla vs. Kong? I hope it's a good movie, if we ever see it. Okay, we're going to start with the first one at the top. And speaking of Godzilla vs. Kong, we have... Yeah, you guys can see that. VHS copy of King Kong vs. Godzilla. Now, as you can see on this cover, not exactly accurate to the movie. Because we've got Godzilla 1984 over here. And we've got a 70s King Kong right here. Not really accurate to how they look in the movie. And then even down here, we've got a 70s King Kong versus like a 60s Godzilla. So, yeah, this cover is not accurate to the movie really at all. And I remember being kind of confused when I watched this for the first time because it does not look like, as everybody knows, Godzilla and Kong do not look like this in the movie. That Kong looks better. Yeah, that's a big one. This Kong, way better, as everybody knows, to the actual Kong from King Kong vs. Godzilla. So yeah, kind of a come down. 35th anniversary edition too. Now in a nice Disney-esque VHS box, very thick. Here's the back. You can see they use the original King Kong right here. They fudge a lot of stuff on this covers. It's not accurate to the movie at all. Hey, Mike's Monsters, good to see you here. Yeah, Child Mind was so confused by that cover. Yeah, this guy gets it. I'm going to read the back, actually. Right here, we got a quote from Leonard Maltin. Be prepared for this quote. Special effects are above average. High praise. We're off to a good start. So on the back it says, East meets West as the fate of Japan hangs in the balance in this colossal clash between two of the mightiest movie monsters of all time. Godzilla, who's soon to return to the big screen, and King Kong. Remember seeing that VHS a long time ago? Yeah, I don't remember where I got this. This is one of the first ones I ever got. So yeah, that's King Kong vs. Godzilla. Okay, we're going jumping forward a lot with this one. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Pretty cool cover, very eye-catching. Lots of explosions, Mechagodzilla, Rodan, Godzilla, jets. The mother of all Godzilla adventures. Hey, No Budget Nerd, thank you very much. Good to see you here. So on the back it says, will maternal instincts destroy Mother Earth? Had a bargain bin Godzilla vs. Megalon I watched till it wore it out. Very generic blue cover. Yeah, I don't have that one. Yeah, so Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. I watched this one a lot when I was a kid because, as everybody knows, it's got like the most Godzilla screen time. It's got tons of action. I still like it, probably a little less so than when I was a kid because I've heard a lot of valid criticisms about it. But still, I like it a lot. Can't help it. Jumping just a little ahead now, we got Godzilla vs. Destroya, another cool cover. These are all from the TriStar VHS releases that came out when Godzilla 98 came out. So it says on the back, get ready for a three-way monster melee. Oh, I'm guessing they're including Godzilla Jr. in that because it was like, it's only Godzilla vs. Destroya. There's the back. Some cool little screenshots back there. I remember being super excited when I got this one because I remember seeing pictures of it in my compendium. I was just like, I gotta see this movie. Doodle59 with a $5 super chat. Thank you very much. Maybe I was a weird kid, but it never bothered me when the box art for Godzilla movies didn't match the movie, like Godzilla vs. Megalon on the World Trade Center. Right. I mean, I wasn't bothered by it too much, but it's just something you notice. Okay, this isn't even a Godzilla movie. This is just in my collection. We got the Giant Behemoth, which I reviewed a couple months ago. If I remember correctly, my mom just bought this for me on a whim. She saw it at a store and she just bought it because, you know, she knows I like monster movies. So, a movie called Giant Behemoth, got a creepy shadow of a dinosaur on it. Let's pick it up. The biggest thing since creation. Look at all that. That's a very, very detailed plot description on the back. London under siege by the biggest thing since creation. Ooh, Nicholas Burr with 50 bucks super chat. Thank you so much. Show us your shirt. Also, thank you for the entertainment. Hope you have a good 2021. Thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate that. I'll show it to you again because I did it earlier, but... Yep. Famous monsters. We got the original Godzilla eating the train. I like this shirt a lot. Okay, right here we got a double feature. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. Gigan. 2 tapes in a box set together. I got a couple of these. What's funny is that they use a frame from Godzilla 1985, or The Return of Godzilla, on the back. That doesn't make any sense, but okay. You guys can see that? Yeah. Kept the covers in great shape, man. Love your videos, by the way. Thank you, Loro. Yeah, they're just in a box in the basement. I just pulled them up. Yeah, why is 1984 on the... It's on the back, but still doesn't make any sense. So for Godzilla vs. Megalon, it says, Godzilla battles his mechanical double to prevent destruction of the Earth. And then for Godzilla vs. Gigan, it says, alien monsters from outer space threaten to destroy mankind. So yeah, double features. I got another one of these, which is actually the first one I ever bought. They seem to think every Godzilla movie is 1984. That was one of the only Godzilla movies really released in theaters, so it kind of makes sense. They would use that for like marketing and stuff. We got Destroy All Monsters. Now that's a pretty cool cover. They didn't skimp out with that one. It says available for the first time on home video. I don't know if this is true or not, but that's what it says. What's your favorite scene from King Kong vs. Godzilla? I don't know, I like it when Kong kind of like flips a rock and then he like does a flip and Godzilla whacks him with his tail and then he just conks himself on a rock. That always amused me. King Kong is such a drunk klutz in that movie. The most epic cover ever. Yep. Then on the back, it's got all these little blurbs. Godzilla nukes New York. Mothra blasts Beijing. Rodan levels Moscow. And King Ghidorah tramples Tokyo, which is not true. The greatest all-star monster battle ever filmed. Under the command of alien invaders, an army of monsters attacks the world, and mankind's only chance is to join together behind the rallying cry, destroy all monsters. The biggest monsters of all time in their biggest movie ever. So yeah, that's Destroy All Monsters. I remember this one being kind of hard to find, if I remember correctly. Destroy All Monsters is still one of my favorite movies. Yeah, that one, I remember not really thinking was okay. It's like a mid-level one for me. Nobody attacked Tokyo until halfway in the week. Yeah, and King Ghidorah wasn't involved. It was like all the monsters together. So next we got Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, or as they like to say, Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster. Now these were part of like a pretty substantial series released by Star Maker. Got our little blurb on the back. When a mysterious three-headed monster, Ghidra, threatens to destroy the world, the residents of Tokyo desperately seek the help of Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla. Together, the three combine their superpowers and force the giant rampaging fiend to get off the earth. ... or else. Ghidra has such a weird pronunciation. Yeah, I've heard... I think Ghidorah is the right way to say it, but I've heard that Ghidra is actually a valid way of saying it too, so I'm not quite sure. Yeah, again, 85 on the cover. Yep, they love to use that image. You can see it in the background. They use the image for all these releases by Star Maker. Okay, we got one of my personal favorites, Godzilla vs. Biollante, with that awesome box art. They did, HBO I think distributed this. Yeah, HBO and Dimension. Such a random distributor with this movie. I don't quite understand how that happened. But they chose wisely by using that poster for the cover. Like, that is eye-catching right there. The most terrifying monster of all time is back in his greatest movie ever. Pretty close, I would say. Will we ever do a video on the Lost Kong movies? Maybe. So yeah, on the back it says, the greatest movie monster of all time is back to terrorize the world in his greatest adventure ever. Then it gives another detailed kind of explanation of the plot. Do you also own the expensive Blu-ray? Nope, never got around to that in time. Too expensive now. Okay, we got another Star Maker release here. Son of Godzilla, as you can see. Godzilla 1985 back in the background again. Godzilla's given this kind of like generic green hue to him. This one is special because I remember my mom coming home with this randomly one day. And then we watched it that night with my mom, my sister, and I think my brother was there too. Very appropriate movie for that to happen with. It's kind of eerie how things worked out with that. Will I review The Host? Maybe. It does involve a kaiju. But yeah, Son of Godzilla, one of my personal favorites. I know it's kind of divisive in the fan base, but it's just a solid movie. I love the special effects in this movie for Kumanga and Kamacuras still hold up. Like, I don't care what anybody says, this movie has some of the best special effects in the series, which is really impressive considering this is in the kind of part of the franchise of the show series when the budget started being slashed and stuff. So, solid stuff here. No Budget Nerd says, I am a movie, huge fan here. Yep, I agree. Kung Fu Kid, $1990, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. There's a trailer on that Biollante VHS that has partial nudity. Don't remember the movie, but it blew my child mind. Yeah, now that you say that, I do remember there being advertisements on it. I don't remember any specific trailers, but now that you mention that, I do recall. I remember being confused by some. Will you start reviewing any kaiju or tokusatsu shows? I'm always open to any of that sort of stuff as long as it's relevant to the subject matter of the channel. Some of Godzilla is mildly enjoyable once you get past Godzilla Mania's designs. Yeah, you gotta be able to put that aside because they really are bad. Mania is weird because he looks both cute and ugly at the same time. It's a very interesting design. Review Home Alone. Don't see how that's relevant to kaiju. Anyway, moving on. We got everyone's favorite, Godzilla 1998. Now, funny story with this is that I had an aunt who like told me that this movie was like super hard to find in VHS. So she was like, "Sorry, you're not gonna be able to find it." And I actually remember being kind of really kind of devastated by that. And then she eventually had to tell me that she was just saying that because she wanted to be the one to buy it for me for my birthday. That didn't end up happening. Brandon B with $10 super chat. Thank you very much. Love reviews about all kaiju. Thank you much. Well, thank you. Thank you for watching. But yeah, Joel Siegel's got a quote on the back. He's like a prominent critic at the time. It's big, it's loud, it's fun. That's questionable, but I got a soft spot for this movie. You give me hope that I can make a channel off of niche media. Yeah, man, it's you just gotta find your thing and kind of stick to it and hope you get lucky. I did get lucky by. I mean, there was some strategy involved. You got to think about things like timing with certain releases. Like for me, it was King of the Monsters. I released a King of the Monsters specific video about a month before that movie came out, and that really worked. It was a really good combination. So that would be the advice I give if anybody's interested in starting a YouTube channel. Really kind of think about things like that, how to time your releases and be consistent with the schedule and stuff like that. That's like one of the most like important things about being successful on YouTube because it's all part of the algorithm. They love consistency. Next up we got Godzilla 2000. Get ready to crumble. The only Japanese Godzilla movie I ever saw in theaters. Went with my dad, my uncle, and a cousin for my birthday because it came out like right at the end of August. So that was pretty cool. What is the music? I basically got this soundtrack to Godzilla vs. Megalon playing very quietly in the background. So if anybody notices that, that's what that is. Yeah, very cool cover. Some of these VHSs have really great covers. This is one of them. We got a quote from the New York Post. Right here. Classic Godzilla. It's great to have the big guy back. From Lou Lumenick from the New York Post. Would you agree that Godzilla is greater than Marvel? I mean, I don't know. Personally, I'm more interested in Godzilla than Marvel, but that's all subjective opinion. Which version of King Kong vs. Godzilla do you like, Japanese or American? I mean, I want to say Japanese, but I do have nostalgia for the American cut. That's all I watched when I was a kid, because that's all we had. Even in the Criterion Collection, they have the Japanese version as the special features version and not the actual version because of copyright stuff. Okay, we got another non-Godzilla movie here. Another one I reviewed recently. Gorgo. Dinosaurs, dragons, and monsters. It's like just put random nouns on the cover. Which is it's a pretty cool cover. We got a quote down here again from Leonard Maltin. 3 stars. Good sci-fi story, exciting special effects. There's the back. Got a couple stills. The special effects in Gorgo are truly admirable. The monster is quite ferocious, except when he wiggles his ears. An interesting little quote there on the back. Yeah, not sure where the dragons are coming from. Yeah, it's very random. Okay, we got non-Godzilla movie again, Rebirth of Mothra. The only Rebirth of Mothra I ever got on tape. I'm not sure if they released the other two the way they did this one. Um, Again, cool cover. This is another one. I think my mom just picked it up for me because she knew I was, again, into giant monsters. I never requested it. I don't even think I knew it existed until she got it. On here it says, she's Mothra. She's back and she's mad. Mothra doesn't seem like the type of monster to get mad, so I don't really see that as an accurate assessment of the plot, but okay. The best Rebirth of Mothra? Yeah, but that's not really saying much, is it? If anybody's seen my reviews knows I'm not particularly fond of the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy. It's not because they're for kids, it's just because they're not particularly well made. That's just my opinion, though. Do I have Cloverfield? Yeah. I have that on DVD. Okay, moving on. We got a 3-tape set. This one's got Godzilla King of the Monsters, starring Raymond Burr. We got Terror of Mechagodzilla. And then down here is just a tape full of sci-fi and monster trailers. That's all it is. Oh, and it's got Bambi meets Godzilla on it. Of the Millennium Godzilla movies, which movie your personal favorite? Final Wars. Definitely. It's the one I've rewatched the most. If you could choose any director, living or dead, to direct one more film in any era, which director would it be and what era? By the way, this is Spooky Lukey from King of the Monsters podcast. Hey, Spooky Lukey, what's going on? Thank you for stopping by. If anybody doesn't know, I was a guest on the King of the Monsters podcast a while back. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. I think all you got to do is search for King of the Monsters podcast. Little plug there for them. Crap, I forgot the question now. I'm sorry. What's your opinion on the Godzilla anime tie-in books? Have not read them, so I cannot say. Anyway, here are the tapes. Godzilla King of the Monsters. It says the top original Godzilla movie. It's a pretty cool cover. It says in original glorious black and white. Directed by Inoshiro Honda and Terry Morse, Godzilla King of Monsters inspired countless monster movies and altered the course of movie making. Featuring images of superb quality taken from the film's original print, this 1956 classic is a valuable collector's treasure. We got Terror of Mechagodzilla. Godzilla's looking kind of funky in that cover. Kind of interesting, though. I like how angular Mechagodzilla is in that cover. Thank you, Noah Little. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy the channel. Again, Terror of Mechagodzilla was directed by Inoshiro Honda, the first and the best of the Godzilla directors. Featuring images of superb quality taken from the film's original print, this 1978 classic is a valuable collector's treasure. And then finally, in the box of 3 tapes, we got it's called Godzilla Trailers, which isn't really true. It's got like maybe 4 or 5 on it, if I remember correctly. The rest of it is just a bunch of random trailers of B sci-fi movies from the 50s. Here's the back. It says, complete your Godzilla movie experience with earth-shattering Godzilla movie trailers. Prepare yourself for the most intense scenes from 20 years of Godzilla movie making. These trailers are a collector's treasure. Plus, science fiction monsters, evil aliens, and killer robots. Science fiction is definitely scary. These sci-fi movie trailers terrified moviegoers in the 50s and 60s. Now it's your turn. War of the Worlds, The Day the Earth Stood Still, even Godzilla vs. King Kong. Which is not the actual title of the movie, but okay. Thrill to some of the greatest sci-fi movies ever made, but whatever you do, don't turn out the lights. I actually did watch this multiple times. That's how much of a dork I am. Is there any Godzilla film I think is overrated? Um, I might be a little controversial and say GMK a little, even though I really like that movie, but it might be a little overrated. Hi from France. I follow your channel since the beginning. I love it. Well, thank you, Folium. I appreciate that. Next up, Godzilla vs. Mothra, which is not the actual title of the movie, as everybody knows. This one's got Godzilla's stamp of approval. I don't know if you can see that. It's an appropriate movie to have that on. This one also had a trailer collection at the end of it, as it says right there. So yeah, another interesting cover there. I think they just say Godzilla versus the Thing in this one, because that is the American dub. I feel like Godzilla vs. Destroy is a little overrated. Yeah, I could see that. I didn't think of that, but yeah. Hey, I have that VHS. Yeah. I imagine a lot of Godzilla fans growing up in my time probably have this one. Again, one of the easier ones to find because Godzilla vs. the Thing, as I like to call it, was one of the more prominent releases in the United States, I think. The next one, the second Godzilla vs. Mothra, called Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth in America, in the Heisei trilogy or the Heisei series. Got on the bottom, get ready to rumble, as opposed to get ready to crumble, like in Godzilla 2000. Kind of like a mid tier Heisei Godzilla film, one of my lesser favorites. Still watched it a lot as a kid though. Do you collect Godzilla figures? I wouldn't say I collect. I mean, I probably do now than more than I ever used to. I got a few right here actually. So we got Godzilla from King of the Monsters, of course. This one was given to me by a friend last year. I think that was really what kind of started me on collecting them actually. Oh, we got our King Kong versus Godzilla Goji. This one's a pretty impressive figure in terms of detail. So yeah, there's that one. He's got his atomic breath. Yeah, this one's a NECA. The other one was the SH Monster Arts. And then we got a NECA Heisei Godzilla. This one's from Space Godzilla specifically. It looks thick, not gonna lie. Yeah. King Kong Goji is a very thick boy. Yeah, so Space Godzilla, Godzilla. And along with that, I got Little Godzilla SH Monster Arts. Isn't he cute? I got them kind of standing side by side on my shelf up here. Feel like King of Monsters betrays the reality of G14 set. Physics went out the window. I mean, yeah, definitely. It's got a different style to it. Is the 98 Godzilla cartoon an underrated gem? Yes, definitely. I did a whole video on it. If you haven't watched that, I would recommend it. And I would also recommend buying the DVD set. Just search on Amazon, Godzilla the series. It'll be the first one. It's like $9. So even if you haven't seen the series and you're just curious, I would recommend it because it's so cheap. It's like there's no reason not to get it if you're even a little interested, because you're probably not likely to be disappointed. and you're not investing that much money in it. So even if you are, it's not like a big loss or anything. Do I have any Godzilla movie posters? No. Never really. I don't know why. I guess maybe they just weren't available, or I didn't see them when I was a kid. But I never. I mean, I did cut out a bunch of cool artwork from my GFan magazines and kind of create like this collage that I put on my bedroom door. God, I was such a nerd back then. But aside from that, I didn't have any posters. So next up, we got Godzilla versus the Sea Monster, or Ebirah Horror of the Deep. Godzilla's greatest challenge. No. Interesting way to describe a movie where Godzilla fights a giant shrimp. We got another Leonard Maltin quote on the back. It's colorful and lively. That's it. Doesn't really tell you what the movie's good or not, but it works. Even though I kind of think lesser of this movie now, I think I gave it 2 stars. I would say it's a high 2-star though. I watched this a lot when I was a kid, so that probably says something. Okay, next up, this one has a special place in my heart because it's the first Godzilla tapes I ever got. Double feature: Godzilla 1985, Godzilla vs. Megalon. I remember, I think I was at a media play in the mall, and we saw 2 of these double features in the VHS section. And I had a choice basically. I could pick one. And so my logic was, I forget what the other one was. Maybe it was the Gigan / Mechagodzilla combo. But I had a choice, and I chose this one because my logic was that, well, you've got one just Godzilla movie where it's just him destroying the city, and then you've got one where he's fighting another monster. So I figured that's a good way to start. You get one of each type of Godzilla movie, a solo movie and a versus movie. So that was my logic with that. Here's the back. We have Godzilla 85 in tape. So jealous. Yep. Here's the little blurb above the description of the 2 movies. It says Godzilla was created as a protest to nuclear testing, and it was these tests which woke him from his billion-year sleep in the first place. His romp through Tokyo was a reminder of what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and as it is with atomic waste disposal, you can never really get rid of the scaly superstar. You can send him to the polar regions or dump him on Monster Island, but he'll always come back. Which is kind of true. So yeah, that's first tapes I ever got. Next up, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Missing the H at the end. Godzilla's back. This time it's for good. Which movie do you think is better, King Kong Lives or Godzilla's Revenge? I'd probably say King Kong Lives. How much does a bootleg DVD of Godzilla in 1985 go for? I have no idea. No Budget Nerd says, I made myself 2 Godzilla movies on an island because Sea Monster is such an inspiration. Yeah, if anybody here hasn't seen No Budget Nerds stop motion films, go and watch them after the stream, of course. But I highly recommend them. You might be traumatized because he doesn't pull any punches, but still worth it. So on the back, large and in charge. A lot of these TriStar Heisei film tapes I remember getting in like Easter baskets when I was a kid. This was one of them. And I remember even taking it with me to my grandparents' house that day and watching it with my cousin, like a little TV set in like the den room. Good times. Do you like Gorosaurus? Yeah, I like Gorosaurus. He deserves better. Him and Baragon and Anguirus and Varan. Those four monsters deserve better. Hopefully, some of them get some good stuff to do in Godzilla Singular Point. Next up, Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. Another one I got in an Easter basket. Cool cover. Not as cool as the artwork cover, but still cool. A supernatural, superpowered intergalactic epic. I wouldn't really call this an intergalactic movie, but okay. Can Godzilla save Japan from intergalactic evil? There's that word again. So yeah, even though I remember watching this one a lot when I was a kid too, even though it's considered like the worst one, but I don't know. I think it's entertaining. But I acknowledge that it's definitely like got its issues, and that scene where Space Godzilla fights Moguera with the asteroids, really bad. Okay, next up, this is a totally random one. It's just in the box. We got Journey to the Center of the Earth. The reason why I guess I will include this in our little exploration here is because I picked this up on a whim because of the cover. You've got a T-Rex, you've got a raptor, you've got like a reptile guy, and I thought it looked cool. And I went home and I watched it, and it was terrible. There's like one scene of a dinosaur, and it's terrible CGI. And the guy shoots it in the eyes with a little pistol, and it dies. That's it. Really bad. I don't know if that's accurate to the actual story, but regardless, massive disappointment when I was a kid. Only watched it once. Somehow I got shoved in with like collection of monster movie tapes here, so there's a story with that. Next up, Godzilla's Revenge. This uses that same cover from the Godzilla King of the Monsters tape, but then you got little Minya blowing his atomic smoke rings on the cover. So, not accurate to the style of this movie at all. So I can imagine some people being disappointed if they pick this up. And again, on the back, they say Godzilla's Revenge was directed by Inoshiro Honda, the first and the best of the Godzilla directors. Got some real compressed images on the back, too. The 10th VHS with Godzilla 1984. Yeah, they really like that design. I mean, to be fair, it's a decent design from certain points of view. Next up, another non-Godzilla movie that I've reviewed recently, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. They couldn't escape the terror, they couldn't believe their eyes, and neither will you. Can't remember how exactly I obtained this. Maybe it was just my mom picking it up for me again. She always would. She knew how much I like monster stuff, so anytime she'd be out and about shopping or something, she'd see something like this, she'd just pick it up on a whim. I was that weird kid who liked old monster movies. I mean, can you imagine like a 10-year-old wanting to watch a movie from the 50s? It's just not very common. But I always liked that stuff. Next up, speaking of Godzilla series. Godzilla series, the first 2 episodes on VHS, called Trouble Hatches. I got this, if I remember correctly, as a Christmas present from either my grandparents or whoever was my secret Santa person for that year, because that's what my family used to do on Christmas, is we'd draw names from a little basket, and that would be the person we got a gift for. So this is what I got one here. I watched this a lot because, you know, aside from trying to catch reruns on Saturday mornings, you couldn't watch the series whenever you wanted. And they didn't have the whole series available at the time, so I could only watch this and the Monster War trilogy on VHS. So this is all I had available in terms of the Godzilla series back then. Was just the first two, the pilot episode, and the Monster War trilogy, and I watched those over and over and over and over again. So that's why I find the recent DVD series release to be so valuable, because I finally was able to watch the rest of the series, because for so long you just couldn't, unless you like watched bootleg uploads on YouTube, which are easily available. But I just never did that for some reason. Those are some mighty big cases. I mean, they're standard VHS. They might look bigger based on perspective, but you have the series on DVD, but it's region locked, unfortunately. Oh, that sucks. What is up with the region stuff? That doesn't make any sense to me. I guess it's to deal with copyright and stuff. Looks like that's about it for the VHS collection. Can't think off the top of my mind if that should be most of the Godzilla movies. I wasn't able to get them all back then. Never got Raids Again. Never got Smog Monster. Just could never find them. And of course, back then there was only 22 Godzilla movies. Now there's obviously a lot more. Your family gave you some great gifts? Yeah, I think it's pretty good. So yeah, that's my VHS collection. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing those and having me go down, taking a trip down memory lane a little bit there. Well, with Raids Again, you're not missing anything. Yeah, especially in America, it wouldn't be Godzilla Raids Again. It would be Gigantus the Fire Monster or something, whatever is called in America. So it wouldn't even been like it would have been a lesser version of an already not so good movie. No Cut Prono or The Last Dinosaur? Nope, sorry man, I haven't seen either of those. Alright, now that we've gone through the VHS collection, I guess now we'll do the ranking or the tier list. So let's bring this up. What King Kong film do you think is overrated? I don't know, none of them, I guess. I mean, maybe King Kong 05, depending on how much somebody likes it, but I like that movie, so. You had a huge crush on the 1933 King Kong as a kid, cried at the end? Yeah, it's, which is funny because that movie doesn't really try to make you sympathetic with him, like, explicitly, not like Peter Jackson's or even the 76 King Kong. It's just kind of more like, here it is. If you're sad about it, you are. If you aren't, you aren't. There we go. We got our tier list going here. I guess we'll just go with the order. Am I just ranking Godzilla? Yeah. This would be interesting. It's going to force me to kind of think about things a little bit. Okay, we'll just go through this in the order. So I guess up first is Godzilla the Planet Eater. You know, I really need to rewatch the anime movies again. I've only seen them twice. So this is based purely on my 2-time exposure to these films. I'm gonna go with B with this one. which might be surprising, but it is my favorite out of the anime trilogy, easily. And I'm not one of those people who doesn't like the way they treat King Ghidorah. I actually really do like it. I like the whole Lovecraftian cult aspect of it. It does something cool and interesting with the monster in the first time in a really long time. Like, he's from space. You know, he's supposed to be this terrifying Lovecraftian nightmare. It's the only movie to really take that to that direction. What does everybody else think of? I guess, let's just do the anime trilogy right off the bat. So that was the third one. So we'll go backwards now. We'll go with City on the Edge of Battle. That one, I think we'll go C. And then Planet Eater. I feel like that's like in between C and D, but I guess I'll just go with D. So there's my ranking of the anime trilogy. So as you can see, it gets better as it goes along. It kind of starts off, at least for me, pretty meh, but as it goes along, it gets better and better. You're losing me. The anime trilogy is bad, just bad. I mean, that's fine if you think that, but I don't think that the makers of the trilogy are like not fans or like trying to do wrong by anybody. They're just doing what they wanted to do creatively with it, and if it doesn't resonate with you, that's fine. But it does resonate with some people. The entire anime trilogy is D tier for me. F tier movies that get boosted to D, at least for trying something unique. I'd say Planet Eater is better than City. Yeah, I could see that. For me, Planet Eater is too... I mean, not Planet Eater. Planet of the Monsters is too... The pacing is off for me in that one, in that it's like so slow at the beginning. Like, it's all about going back to Earth and landing and discovering everything, and it's kind of interesting, but I don't know, it just takes for a long time to get going. Whereas I feel like the other two at least are a little paced a little better, especially Planet Eater. That one is a lot better. Most boring version of Ghidorah? I mean, it depends on what you mean by boring. I mean, yeah, technically he just kind of like wiggles around and kind of bites Godzilla and everything, but conceptually I think it's actually pretty interesting. You love a Godzilla movie that goes all out cosmic horror? Yeah. Either with Ghidorah or some original space monster. That'd be super cool. Is it bad if I haven't watched much Godzilla? No. Everyone's welcomed here, not just super fans or anything like that. I have nothing to say because I haven't seen them because I refuse to watch them. I mean, I'd say at least give them a shot. If you don't like it within their first like 20 or 30 minutes, you're free to turn it off. But I mean, you're free to do whatever you want. Have you ever thought about creating or writing your own Godzilla movie? Not like a literal movie, but I have ideas for like stop motion stuff. I'm actually very inspired by No Budget Nerd and the stuff he does, because I actually used to do a little stop motion when I was a kid with like Lego sets. I had like a program. It was called the Steven Spielberg Movie Maker set, and it came with a camera and a Lego set and everything, and you could make cool little stop motion movies with it. I had a lot of fun with that, and I kind of would like to kind of do that again with things like, SH Monster Arch figures and stuff like that. I only watched Planet of the Monsters and couldn't deal with any more of the technicalities. I didn't get that much with the sci-fi specifics. Yeah, that's a big thing. If you're not into... If you just kind of... Your mind just kind of goes blank over technobabble, these movies are not for you, because there's not a lot of like character emotion stuff going on. If you're into technicalities, you might really like it, but if you're not, and I'm not really one of those people, you kind of just like, okay, that's fine. Fruity Charles, congrats on 50K. Your channel is awesome. Thank you. Okay, let's move on from the anime trilogy. So we got, what is this, Destroy Monsters? Yeah, I'm gonna go with a C with Destroy Monsters, which might be controversial. But I just never. I didn't rewatch that movie a lot when I was a kid. It just never really hooked me, despite the fact that it's considered to be like, at least at the time, the like biggest, most epic Godzilla movie ever. But I don't know, characters not that great. Kilax, in terms of like aliens in the Godzilla series, way at the bottom. Like they're just space nuns. Like that's the best you can do. At least in Mechagodzilla, they are like apes. They're inspired by Planet of the Apes, I guess. And then in Gigan, they were cockroaches. Like there's something interesting going on with them. Kilax are just like weird ladies in sparkly nun outfits, and then they turn into like slugs that like crawl into rocks when they are in a certain temperature. It's just not that great. But I mean, there are fun aspects of it. The final battle is cool. The romp through Tokyo with Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Amanda, and all that is the highlight of the movie easily. Thank you very much, Kaijutopia. I'm also looking forward to the new year. Hopefully, it's good. And honestly, this might be controversial, but I think Final Wars does the concept better. You know, let's just jump to that one. Where's Final Wars here? Final Wars, where are you? Yeah, we'll go to Final Wars. You know, I'm gonna go A. Yeah, I said it. A for Godzilla Final Wars. Only because it's super entertaining. And a lot of people have their criticisms. It's too goofy. Godzilla, the fights are short. Um, Maybe the special effects aren't the greatest, but I just like how bonkers it is. I'm somebody who can enjoy cheese as much as anyone else, and I think the movie is super fun. It's super entertaining. I like Gordon. He's one of my favorite human characters because he's so ridiculous. Final Wars is a mixed bag for me. Yeah, and I totally, you know, I'm one of those people who doesn't think people have to have the same opinions of me. So if you don't like Final Wars, that's totally okay. I understand. It's not for everybody. But, you know, it's just so unique. Like, is there any other Godzilla movie that has like ridiculous over the top kung fu and like motorcycle chases? It's super fun. And it's the movie like when I want to introduce it to somebody who I think, you know, may like Godzilla movies, but I'm not quite sure. I think it has the most entertainment value, and it's kind of the one I turn to. Godzilla Final Wars is, to me, is an S tier. It's my favorite Godzilla movie. Yeah, see, some people love it, some people hate it. Final Wars is a lot of fun. You just wish it didn't ape Matrix ID4 so hard. Yeah, but to be fair, every movie back then was aping the Matrix. Every movie. Like, if you look at early 2000s American movies, they all have this like Matrix aesthetic to them. Like there's a distinct look to early 2000s movies because everybody was trying to be like the Matrix because that movie was so huge. So I can't really hold it against them because to do that would mean I'd have to hold that against that to like every movie released in the early 2000s. It also apes the X-Men as well. And you know, I don't taking ideas from other stuff doesn't really bother me as long as I'm being entertained. And to be honest, Godzilla movies have been like taking from other genres for so long. It doesn't. Final Wars is by no means an exception in that regard. Final Wars could have been much less better with less focus on the humans. I can see that point of view, but I find the stuff with the humans entertaining still because it's so ridiculously over the top and action packed that it kind of I think it blends really well together. Final Wars is a movie I would enjoy more if I was drunk and didn't want to think. It is a good movie for that type of setting. It is. That's undeniable. If you're a little inebriated, it can be super fun to watch, especially with other people. Okay, moving on. What do we do next? Ghidorah the three-headed monster. Ugh. This is another one that a lot of people consider to be a classic, but it never really hooked me. I'm gonna say it's High C. Like, I don't know what it is about it. I never really was super invested in the in like the spy plot and the princess and everything. It just never did it for me. I mean, there's some things you just can't help but whether you like it or you don't like it. There's really no other explanation. And also, don't find the fights particularly that good. Um, there's humor to be had in the monster interactions for sure, and it's got the scene where Mothra convinces Godzilla and Rodan to fight with her, and that's a great scene. That's iconic. And it did introduce Ghidorah, and the scenes where he destroys things are really good. I mean, I gave the movie 3 stars, which so I think C kind of meets there. Um, it's a solid entry, but it's just personally not one of my go-to ones. There are better Ghidorah movies, basically. I mean, the next one is a better Ghidorah movie. You know, let's just jump right to that one now that we're here. Um, Monster Zero, where are you? Here we go, Monster Zero. Now this, boom, A. Love Monster Zero. One of the first movies I ever saw. Um, it was one of the 3 movies I saw at the video store, along with Godzilla King of the Monsters and Terror of Mechagodzilla. Um, I mean, I was a kid back then, so I probably was kind of bored, let's be honest, because it is. And I remember being kind of shocked that there's like barely any monster action in it. But as an adult now, it's one of the most entertaining, consistently good, ambitious entries in the series. I mean, it's the first entry to like take it into space, and the only one. It boggles my mind that we haven't taken the concept of like expanding the series to space and stuff beyond Monster Zero, and that was so long ago. Characters in Monster Zero are top notch. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Is the human stuff is good enough on its own, and then you add in monster action that is not in the movie that much, but it's very high quality. So you're getting it's quality over quantity when it comes to Monster Zero. You think Ghidorah's The Third Monster is better than Invasion of Astro Monster? Respect. Ghidorah himself is a great kaiju. I love Ghidorah, but his first 2 films were meh. I mean, yeah, there's certain things about it. Like when you really think about it, Ghidorah's kind of not doesn't really live up to his name in those first movies, or really the show series in general. Like he kind of gets trounced all the time. Maybe it's because he's always fighting other monsters. If he fought one monster by himself, he'd do better. But still, he just can't hold his own. And then you get to destroy monsters, he just gets trounced. More Godzilla movies needed Nick Adams. Yeah, it's a shame we only got the one. That and Frankenstein Conquers the World. There are always going to be differing opinions. Yeah, that's the thing that I think people need to remember as Godzilla movies are so diverse in tone, style, direction that one person's great entry is another person's meh entry is another person's they just don't like it. So as long as you respect other people's opinions, then we can have a conversation about it. And that's what I like about the series is there's so many differing opinions about what kind of movies they like. Like you can have silly Godzilla movies, you can have serious Godzilla movies, you can have anything in between. And it really depends on how much you like that stuff that certain entries appeal to you more than others. See, Gojira and Bowser Boy says Invasion of Astro Monster is too slow for me, and I can totally understand that. It is a slow movie. But for me, I find the premise and the characters good enough that its slowness doesn't deter the movie and my enjoyment of it. The beauty of Godzilla, Mike's Monsters says, the beauty of Godzilla is that there's a different movie for everyone, no matter the opinion. Yes, exactly. That's the perfect way to say that. Diversity is good. Yes. Diversity is good. No matter where. Okay, let's move on. We got GMK. We'll go A with that. Who doesn't love GMK? Well, actually, no, some people don't really love that movie. Me, I went from really liking it when I first saw it to being kind of less so to now going back to really liking it, but maybe not quite as much as initially when I was really young. Um, but GMK's got almost everything you want in a Godzilla movie. It's got tons of action. The Godzilla design is great. Um, it's got a really interesting take on the monsters. The score by Ko Otani. Oh. You got the director, Shusuke Kaneko. Unfortunately, he's not on the top of his game for whatever reason, because as much as I like GMK, I don't think it's as high quality as the Gamera trilogy. And that's probably due to Toho shenanigans, maybe, at the time. I don't know. But, so there is that, but it's still overall one of the best entries in this series. I feel like GMK would have been better if they went with the original concept. Yeah. Having Berrigan, Anguirus, and Varan would have been leagues better. That's like the biggest flaw of the movie, but you can't really hold that against it because you got to look at the movie on its own. But yeah, knowing in the back of your mind that this movie could have had Varan and Anguirus in it, it just makes the concept make more sense. Like Ghidorah and Mothra just feel kind of, they don't really fit when you really think about it. Like you got Baragon, then you got Ghidorah and Mothra. It's just, whereas Varan, Baragon, and Anguirus feel consistent. Plus, the whole idea is that these monsters are supposed to be like underdogs to Godzilla, and like he's the villain, and they gotta like fight against him. And those are underdog monsters. Those are monsters with not a lot of flashy powers, and they would have fit the tone of the movie perfectly. But you know, they don't have the popularity and the draw that Ghidorah and Mothra have, so Toho said, change it. Still not as good as Gamera 3, though. I mean, most Godzilla, or most monster movies are not. How do you think GMK should have ended? Yeah, I got issues with the way Godzilla gets defeated. I don't know. Not the way they did it though. Where he goes inside his mouth and then shoots the missile and it comes out of his shoulder and then Godzilla goes to breathe his atomic breath and then the breath comes out of the shoulder and then he blows up. That's just so weird. And like the physics of it don't even really make any sense. Like I always thought this as a kid. It's like, okay, he went down his mouth, so he should be in his stomach, right? So how did the drill get in the shoulder? Shouldn't it be coming out of like the stomach? It doesn't make any sense. GMK is my third favorite movie, but it's still S tier. They did great for making Godzilla a villain to show a good villain that had to be unstoppable. I think Anguirus never appeared in the Millennium. He appeared in Final Wars, that was it. Not a fan of that G defeat? Yeah. See, Mike's Monsters agrees with me. I just always struck me as like, how do we defeat Godzilla? It's like so random. Love the Godzilla vs. Baragon fight. Yeah, and that's the highlight of the movie. And I feel like that's an example of how the better the movie would have been if it had been Varan and Anguirus, because we would have had more fights like that. That are a little bit more scrappy and have tension in them because you're like, how's Anguirus gonna beat this Godzilla? This Godzilla that can like cause an atomic explosion with one blast of his breath. I mean, that being said, Ghidorah and Mothra are still kind of cool in the movie. I really want a new Gamera movie. Not a big fan of the idea of him appearing in an American movie, though. Well, good. I got good news for you. There's no chance Gamera is appearing in an American movie. None. You can quote me right here. Gamera's never appearing in an American movie. Thanks again for all your pickups from my store. Of course, man. I'm all about supporting friends and people in this community, so it's my pleasure to purchase some stuff for you. actually. I got my. Speaking of GMK, this is actually perfect timing. I got my Mike's Monsters GMK thermos right here. You can see that. Looks pretty cool, doesn't it? Haven't been able to use it yet because I've been on vacation, but when I go back to work, I will take my coffee with me in this. So yeah, if anybody's interested, uh, search for Mike's Monsters. He's got a store on Teespring, I think is the website. Um, support him by buying his stuff, because I got this and a mask, and I'm happy with both of them. So thanks a lot, man. Yeah, and that's the thing. These are all figures. It's not like he takes really cool pictures of like figures and adds cool filters and effects to them. So there's a lot of effort and hard work that goes into these. So I'd recommend it. Would Gamera be more suitable in GMK? No. Gamera's not that mean. Okay, well, let's go on to the next movie. All Monsters Attack. We're gonna put this in D. Um, as I've said before, um, I've grown to appreciate the movie more, obviously, but I'm still not the biggest fan of it. It's not a movie that I'll just sit down and watch. Um, I don't find the kid to be particularly endearing, especially in the English cut. Um, it's mostly stock footage, so if you've seen the other movies, you've seen most of the monster action. It's, but it's better. Old me would have been like, this movie sucks F, and a high F too, or low F, however you want to measure it. But now I can at least put it like a high D. And honestly, in a good day, maybe I'd put it in C too. I don't know. That's the thing about these tiers. It's just in the moment kind of thinking. It can vary. Um, for me, it belongs in F. Yeah, it's. I know the in thing now is to act like it's kind of like this underrated masterpiece in the series, but it's got its artistic legitimacy, but at the end of the day, it's still not that great. It's nowhere near as bad as Gamera's Super Monster, though. Yeah, I would agree. If we were doing a list with those movies, that would be an F for sure. Was All Monsters Attack criticized for taking place inside the dreams of a young boy instead of the real world? Um, I don't think it's criticized usually for that specific reason, because I actually think that's an interesting concept. It's more just that the movie is uh, cheap, I guess. The stock footage isn't particularly integrated well. Godzilla's constantly changing appearances. But you also got to remember it's just a different time. You know, you saw a movie once back then. It was in theaters, and that was it. So I don't think they really expected people to notice things like that. And that's why they did it more. Nowadays, you can never get away with that, ever. Godzilla's Revenge is convenient when you're 7 and you just want to watch the monsters for a while. Yeah, I could see that. If you want to, like, kind of get in a good amount of Godzilla Island adventures, kind of compounded into, like, a fast food, like, patty or something. That's the equivalent of Godzilla's Revenge slash All Monsters Attack. Okay, next up, Godzilla 2000. What this one to be? It's a solid movie. I think I gave it 3 stars, but it's a high 3 stars. That's the thing. These I've gotten these comments a lot about how you can give this movie that star rating or everything. My opinion with star ratings and everything is that it's just a vague measurement. What I say about the movie matters more than the actual rating. And 2 3 star movies are not equivalents. So which basically means that just because I give one movie 3 stars doesn't mean that if I give another movie 3 stars, I think they're equatable. They're not. It's just kind of a way of giving you a general sense of how I feel about it. That's it. Like, take the star ratings with a grain of salt, basically. And so this tier list is just another way of doing that. So if you're like, well, how do you give Godzilla 2000 a B when you give it 3 stars? I don't know. It's hard to explain. It's just kind of a general feeling about how I feel about the movie. But Godzilla 2000, I think, is a high kind of mid-tier Godzilla movie. It's got a cool Godzilla design, but in recent years, I'm not quite as fond of it as I used to. Orga is an interesting monster. It's got some of the best characters in the series, but at the same time, it's got some really bad special effects. Like, they were kind of experimenting, and like there's even one shot where Godzilla's like walking through the city, and there's like this really bad composite like green screen effect or something. It's just really bad. Also, like, the sound design in the Japanese version is strange. Like, there's a lack of sound in certain areas. The American version is almost recommended over the Japanese version because they improved a lot when it comes to sound design and music placement. Godzilla 2000 was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw on the big screen. Yep, same. If you don't include the TriStar 98 American Godzilla film, it was my first as well, and still my only one. I would have liked to have seen Shin Godzilla in theaters. I was planning on it, but it never came close enough to me, so I never got to see it. Can't stop looking at those dancing Godzillas. They are very eye catching. I love the general in 2000 go through Godzilla like crab through a goose. Yeah, that was one of my top 10 funniest Godzilla moments. That line always stuck out to me. Right, Kaijusaurus, and then there was Katagiri's scream at the end. Never forget the day I saw Godzilla 2000 in theaters. Yep, I still remember it very well as well. Well, as well as memory will allow. Mike's Monsters got to see Shin twice in theaters. Ugh, I'm so jealous. I didn't get to see that until it came out on Blu-ray. Godzilla 2000 is a good movie for kids if you want to show them a Godzilla movie. Yeah, it's one of those movies that I think is a solid introductory movie as well. And again, because the characters um, are pretty decent. All right, next one we got Tokyo SOS, right? Yeah, I'm gonna put that one. That one's like a, yeah, we'll give that one a B. Tokyo SOS is one of those movies where it's just pretty much just monster fighting. The movie's like one of the shortest in the series. I think it's like only like 80 minutes, but it's just pretty much nonstop action. There's like barely a story, and that was one of my major criticisms of it. And a lot of people I know disagree with that because they like simple stuff with the monsters, and fighting is kind of all they need, and that's fine. But I'm one of those people that at least need some semblance of like investment for the monster fighting to hit home, and I find Tokyo has to be a little lacking in that. That being said, it's all very well executed. I really like the Godzilla design of the Kiryu duology. Um, that being said, Tokyo SOS has a lesser main character than uh, Mechagodzilla. Against Mechagodzilla, yeah. I was blanking on the title for a second there. Against Mechagodzilla is better. Yeah, I would agree. Though again, Mothra design in Tokyo S, excellent. My favorite Mothra design is Tokyo SOS, and they reused it for Final Wars, if I'm correct. Um, she just looks so beautiful in that movie. Like the design, she looks very true to the original, but also different, very fuzzy. The wings, she's just very well articulated. Tokyo is an A for me because it at least includes monsters other than Kiryu, Mothra, and her twins, reminding me of the classic. Tokyo SOS scene when the Shobijin are singing and Mothra's fighting and shedding her scales, and the song caps when Godzilla uses the tongue rather than the scales erupt is so well done. Yeah, there are well done sequences in that. Again, the special effects are very good. One thing that I always think is funny when the little kid is like creating the Mothra symbol through the chairs, I'm just like, how did you manage that? With like getting like a big picture viewpoint of what you're doing, that would be a nightmare. To try to like maneuver the desk so that you're creating this Mothra symbol. Try to do that without some kind of guide. You're not gonna do it. That's nitpicking though. Mothra and Kiryu designs are at their peak in Tokyo SOS. All designs really. This one helped Kiryu Goji's design grow on me. Yeah, I have that figure as well. It's not around here. Hey, can you review the Kong animated series in 2000? Um, maybe. That will be my first turn viewing of it, so I don't know. I don't have nostalgia goggles or anything. Alright, next up is Godzilla, The Return of Godzilla. I think this is another, I'll go B with this one as well. I think Return of Godzilla is one of the better entries, but at the same time, it's kind of got its flaws as well. The Godzilla design is kind of like the perfect encapsulation of what I mean, because from like certain angles, the Godzilla design is like really good, but then from other angles, it's just like, particularly from the front, it's just like it looks a little goofy. And then also the characters in Return of Godzilla aren't super good. But that being said, it's got one of my favorite characters in it, the Prime Minister. It's got one of my favorite scenes in a Godzilla movie when after he meets with the Soviet Union and America, and the guy asks him like, "How did you convince them to not drop an A bomb on, to use an A bomb on Godzilla?" And he basically explains like, "Well, I simply said, how would you like it if you were in my position and the world was telling you we have to drop nukes on your major cities? How would you feel about that?" And they saw his point of view. Like in the music and everything and the acting, it's a great scene. Not in the American cut, which is a shame. So I really like the political stuff in it. That's probably one of my favorite aspects of it. I like the Prime Minister and the Professor character. Yeah, the Professor is a pretty decent character too. 1985 was a lot of people's first Godzilla film, myself included. Yeah, me too as well. Like I said, there's a reason why some of these tapes over here uses that design, is because I think, aside from Megalon previously, actually I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure the Mega Godzilla was released in theaters as well, but it was a major release in the 80s, and so after that, I think it was kind of like the major like Godzilla look in the States, and they kind of just reused it over and over again. Congrats on 50K. Thank you, Melody. First time seeing your face, you're a handsome devil. Well, thank you. I saw Godzilla 85 in the theater. My parents took me because they knew I loved Godzilla. That's an experience I would have liked to see. Alas, I was not existing when this movie came out, so never got to see it in theaters. Saw it on VHS when my grandparents took me to the video store when I was like 4 or 5. That's how I saw it. On my grandparents' big, like, giant TV. Back when giant TVs were like huge, the old CRT TVs with the tubes and everything. So yeah, that's another thing. Of course, the Godzilla 1985 is a different version of the Return of Godzilla, but just in general, that movie has a special place in my heart because it's the movie that introduced me to Godzilla. So of course I gotta like it. The ending made me cry when Godzilla fell in the volcano. Yeah. The Godzilla falling in the volcano was what I took away from that movie. Like, I was sad. Like, you're supposed to... And you're supposed to be sad to a certain extent, obviously. But as a kid, you know... Especially with the American version, they add that ear-piercing scream at the end. Like, an improvement of the American version. It just really, like, kind of cuts to your core. I remembered it for the rest of my life. Brandon B says, I took a girl to see it. She did not go out with me again. Her loss. Oh man, that sucks. Oh well, you're right though. It wasn't meant to be, I guess. Interesting date movie though. Is the Japanese version of the Return of Godzilla on Blu-ray? Yeah, actually, and I think it's pretty widely distributed. I have a version of it. Or I have the Blu-ray, I should say. So I think if you just go search on Amazon, you should be able to find it. Alright, moving on. We got Godzilla 1998. We're gonna go D with this one. I know a lot of people will probably put this movie in F, but I find it entertaining still. And I have, like, I look back fondly on the 1998 era. It holds a special place in my heart. So I can't look at it without that being part of it. And I like the Zilla design. It's got some cool stuff in it. The first attack, when Godzilla rises from Manhattan Bay, is that what it's called? And you just see his legs and they hide how he looks and everything. I think that's a well done sequence. And what else? That being said, the whole baby Godzilla subplot is garbage. I remember thinking that even when I was a kid. I mean, I don't think I would go that far, but I just remember being like, why are we doing this? I don't go to a Godzilla movie to see a Jurassic Park movie. I like Jurassic Park movies, obviously. Jurassic Park is like my favorite movie of all time, especially back then. But if I want to see raptors eating people, I'll watch Jurassic Park. When I go to a Godzilla movie, I want to see a giant dinosaur. Not little dinosaurs, giant dinosaur. And he either needs to be destroying something or he needs to be fighting something. Not laying eggs and not having little babies running around eating people. Terrible, terrible decision. And the special effects were not good. There are some really bad shots of particularly of the baby Godzillas in Godzilla 98. Like the compositing, terrible. There are shots where it looks like they're like floating on the floor. You can tell they kind of rushed that movie. And they did, because Independence Day came out in 96. Godzilla 98 came out 2 years later. That is not a long time. Especially when making a $100 million plus blockbuster movie. They needed more time to round out those special effects. And of course, they tried to hide them through the smoke and the rain and everything, which they still do to this day, obviously. After the Twin Towers reference, I can't watch it beyond now. Yeah, that's the thing about it too. There's a lot of shots of the Twin Towers in the movie. It really dates it. Like you can't watch the movie without that in the back of your mind. You like Gene Reno, Hank Azaria though? Gene Reno in particular, yeah. And I will admit there are some moments where Hank Azaria does make me laugh. But Gene Reno is good. I always quote the "You call this coffee?" Scene. Like I just love quoting stuff like that. For me, Godzilla '98 was the first American movie I ever saw. Like the first like American movie. That's interesting. Also, I rocked out to the soundtrack back then. The Wallflowers, Puff Daddy. Still do from time to time. There was supposed to be a sequel that sounded good. Yeah, the sequel where he fights the giant bee, and Nick Totopoulos, like it opens with him marrying Audrey, but then he like gets kidnapped by Roach again, and then he takes him to Australia, and they find out that there's a whole nother nest of Godzillas and stuff like that. I remember reading about that script years ago, and just being like, what if? G98 ended up giving us Godzilla the series, so it's not all bad. Oh no, totally. The way I look at Godzilla '98 is that it's kind of one of those necessary things when you're taking something from another part of the world and you're trying to bring it to our world. Um, Without Godzilla '98, we wouldn't have gotten the MonsterVerse. It was the first attempt, and it was a mistake. But often, what mistakes do is they reveal what you should have done, and then you can correct, which is basically what happened. When Godzilla 2014 was announced, they very intentionally told us this is going to be the real Godzilla. He's going to have his look, he's going to have his atomic breath, he's going to fight another monster. Like, I remember when Legendary released that first teaser image of it, like, that's Godzilla. Like, like, they know what they're doing this time. The reason they know that is because they failed so hard the last time. So it was kind of necessary. Like, that movie needed to happen. They needed to fail so hard that they realized, oh, this is how you do it. So it's just another chapter in the long saga that is Godzilla. And yes, we did get the awesome animated series out of it. And also, because of that movie that we got the Heisei films released in America. Before that, they weren't available. I even remember looking in my compendium; they were specifically saying, the Heisei films not available in America. And I just remember being like, why? I want to see them so bad. They look so awesome. And then we finally got them because TriStar obtained the rights and they were able to distribute them. So anyway, that's Godzilla '98. Speaking of 2014, we got Godzilla 2014, the course correction. We're gonna go A with this one. I know some of you are probably thinking, when are we gonna get to S's? Well, I think you guys probably know which ones are gonna be there. Godzilla 2014, as we were just saying, is a complete 180 from '98. This time they knew exactly what they needed to do. They made a versus movie / disaster movie. They hired a kind of, I don't know to what extent Gareth Edwards is like a Godzilla fan, because from what I understand, he mostly is aware of, like, he grew up watching like the Hanna-Barbera series and the original film. I don't know if he's like considered like a hardcore fan, but that's fine. Getting like a small independent, filmmaker to make a big budget Godzilla movie, like, obviously they do that a lot nowadays, but that was kind of inspired. And the best thing about the movie is its scale. Like, I remember seeing 2014 in the theater, and we were sitting in like the fourth row probably, and it's just the sense of scale with that movie. Like when you see the Muto rise up for the first time, and you have Brody kind of just looking up at it. That is an amazing shot. And the movie's full of them. There's so many amazing shots in that movie. Characters? I mean, we all know about the whole Bryan Cranston thing. He should have been in the movie longer. If anything, he should have been the main character, or have the movie divided evenly between him and Ford. But taking him out after the first act was a big mistake. And I remember them saying the excuse was, "Oh, we didn't know what else to do with him." Well, come up with something. You know, you can come up with something. I've come up with something in my head that would have been better than what we got with that regard. Godzilla felt massive when they panned up his body at the airport. Yeah, the airport scene, that's like top 10 moments right there. Like, it's so good. And being in the theater when he roars for the first time, it literally shook my skull. Like, you could feel it in your teeth. Let's hear it? Or are you referring, Skadu, are you referring to like my ideas to make it better? That may be, I'm not going to do that here on the stream, but that may be a video. So, I guess I'll just say stay tuned for that. Godzilla's a B tier. There's a lot of amazing cinematography shots. The Mutos are worthy enemies. Amazing CGI, and Godzilla is well designed, but I wish Godzilla was more focused on. Yeah, that's another major criticism. The reason why people criticize the movie for not having enough Godzilla isn't actual screen time. The problem with Godzilla 2014 is that he isn't the focus of the plot. The Mutos are. And when you have a movie that already doesn't have a lot of Godzilla screen time, it really makes him feel like he's kind of like off to the side of the story. And that's, again, I have my ideas for how to improve the movie. One of those ideas is making Godzilla more integral to the plot via connecting him to the Ford family more. Because that's the problem. The Mutos are connected to the Ford family. Godzilla's just kind of like, he just shows up, kills the Mutos, moves on. And it's awesome. But as like a movie called Godzilla, probably not the best angle to take it. So Godzilla 2014 is a movie where the execution is phenomenal, but the script is got major issues, and the great directing and the style of it and everything makes up for a lot of those issues, but those issues are still there. Ken Watanabe is another plus. Yeah, unfortunately, he kind of just stands around, doesn't do anything. Again, I have my ideas for how to improve it. That would be another one. He needs to be more involved with the plot. After a while, he kind of just stands there and says wise things. How much do you think 2014 was influenced by Godzilla in 1994? I mean, I've read that. I don't think I've read the script, but I've read like the beats of it, and I don't think too much. If anything, the 1994 script reminded me more of Gamera Guardian of the Universe than... And if anything, Gamera Guardian of the Universe is more similar to Godzilla 2014. Would love to see that video. Yeah, maybe I'll make that a what if type video at some point. One problem with the script was how it wanted Ford Brody's journey to parallel Godzilla, but you kind of got lost in the translation. Yeah, like, and this is one of the things I really like about it, is that both Ford and Godzilla are driven by duty. They're soldiers. You know, they have a mission. They're gonna commit to it no matter what. Unfortunately, that connection is kind of vague to the point where only people like me who nerd out about, and you guys who nerd out about Godzilla stuff are going to make those connections. So. Alright, moving on, we got Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. We'll put this in the B section. So far we got most movies in the B section, which I think probably sounds about right. So, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is another kind of like mid-tier movie for me. It's got really interesting stuff in it. I really like the idea of building a Mechagodzilla over the bones of Godzilla. That's super cool. Even though it doesn't make any sense because his bones were melted by the oxygen destroyer. But plot holes aside, that's super cool, interesting direction to take Mechagodzilla. Um, the movie also has a simplicity to it that is both a strength and a weakness, in my opinion. It's a strength in that it keeps the movie very focused, and you go in, you get what you want, you get out. But at the same time, and this is the case with Tokyo SOS too, that simplicity also kind of makes it a little less interesting, in my opinion. Like, it's just a movie about Godzilla. We gotta kill him with Mechagodzilla. It's like, okay. Like, that's. I've seen that before. And again, at least they spice it up a bit with this new Mechagodzilla. But that being said, the final fight is pretty good. Against Mechagodzilla comes first or Tokyo SOS? I'd say Mechagodzilla. Mechagodzilla has the advantage of a better main character. I remember the main character in Tokyo SOS, the guy, just being very bland. Whereas at least against Mechagodzilla, there's actual like an arc to her. She feels guilt about getting her colleagues killed. She wants to make up for it. She's very hard on herself, but she finds companionship in the scientist guy and his daughter, and she learns to kind of forgive herself. Like, it has that aspect to it. Um, Man, there's a point in the story where the little girl wonders why her scientist dad is bringing a dead monster back to life, but not her mother. And I thought, wow, there's a new movie plot. I don't know if that's like a movie plot, but I think that's a solid, like, philosophical idea to bring up. And I think again that's what Mechagodzilla's got going for it. Is it's got that a theme of isolation and being hard on yourself and learning to kind of move on. Like, it's not super deep or anything, but it's there. Let's have a Godzilla tie-in for Stranger Things. I don't even know what that would look like. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is extremely light Evangelion. Yeah, kinda. Now that you bring that up, that's actually kind of an apt comparison. It's like, get in the robot, Shinji. It's like, get in the Mechagodzilla. Oh yeah, of course. How could I forget the score? I don't can't remember the name of the composer off the top of my head. So if somebody could drop that in the chat, that'd be great. But the score for both the Kiryu duology and the Megaguirus are probably some of the best. Like, the new Godzilla theme in particular is excellent. It's like it's a worthy addition to the vast library of amazing musical compositions that make up the Godzilla series. Michiru Oshima, thank you, Skadu. I can always rely on you. Yeah, she's great. If anything, I wish she would have been able to contribute more to the series. I love this movie for the character development for its main characters. Yeah, it's very solid. It's not one of my favorites, but it's very solid. All right. Ooh, we got a big one coming up. Shin Godzilla. I think you all probably know where this is gonna go. We got our first S tier Godzilla film right here. I mean, what else can I say about Shin Godzilla that hasn't been said a million times, that I haven't said already in my like in-depth review? But it's one of the best Godzilla movies ever made, if not the best. Like, it's right up there with the original, in my opinion. Like, it's not just a good Godzilla movie; it is a good movie. Like, it's one of those movies where like I'd feel comfortable showing it to a non-Godzilla fan. My only caveat is that it's kind of super intense and it's got that foreign language barrier to it. And certain people are probably not going to like it because it's so procedural. The S stands for Shin, indeed. Like, the new Godzilla design, controversial, but in regards to what the movie is about, is excellent. It looks like the original in kind of vague ways, but it also very distinct, and its design is super creepy because it recalls like burn victims, kind of like the original was supposed to. It's just this mutated, horrifying, disgusting creature. Like more than any other Godzilla design, he looks like something that came from radiation. Like he doesn't look like a dinosaur. He just looks like this horrifying radiated sea creature. Godzilla against Mechagodzilla is light Evangelion. Shin Godzilla is literally just an Evangelion movie, which makes it amazing. Yeah, like I've seen that comparison made before. I forget which episode of Evangelion it was, but the episode was literally just about them trying to stop an angel, I think. And somebody said like that's all Shin Godzilla is. It's like that one episode of Evangelion kind of just stretched for 2 hours, and it's like, yeah, and it's amazing. I had to show someone Shin Godzilla, I would ask first if they wanted to watch a political drama. Yeah, it does come with some caveats. Like, you got to preface it with being like, this is not just like a monster movie. Like, you're not gonna we're not gonna just sit here and watch monsters destroy stuff for 2 hours. And I'm not usually a fan of procedurals even. That's kind of what Shin Godzilla is, and it's just got this super fast pace to it that makes it really engaging. It's never boring, and I know some people would disagree with that because I've heard people say the movie is really boring and opinions, but I couldn't disagree more. I've watched it so many times, and it never gets boring. And then it builds up to those amazing scenes. You know the scenes I'm talking about. The only criticism I would give of the movie is that after when Godzilla unleashes his atomic breath and he like freezes for the rest of the movie, the wind kind of gets sucked out of it. Like it does get slower. And in typical storytelling fashion, you don't want to slow things down when you move into your third act. You want to kind of ramp things up. And in a way, they do with the whole we're going to drop an atomic bomb on Tokyo thing that is ramping things up. But with regards to Godzilla itself, and after the awe inspiring spectacle we saw previously, it's not the type of ramping up of the drama that you kind of normally expect. But it's in service of a really important message, so I can't criticize it too much. And there's like really good scenes with really good acting where characters are just contemplating like what's going to happen. It's just there's lots of good drama that you just don't usually see in a Godzilla movie. And as much as I like silly cheesy stuff, and I do very very much, I like I like my serious stuff too. And Shin Godzilla takes the concept super seriously and does it really well. When I saw this in theaters and Godzilla let loose his atomic breath for the first time after it was over, the audience cheered. See, that's interesting because I don't think that's something you're supposed to cheer for. Like, that's something you're supposed to be horrified about. Like, it's not the same thing as Godzilla unleashing the atomic breath, like in Godzilla 2014, where he's aiming at like an enemy and you're supposed to like cheer. Like, you're supposed to recoil in horror when Godzilla does it in Shin Godzilla. So that's an interesting reaction. I don't want to say that's the wrong reaction, but that's my gut instinct. The nuclear message is really heavy and is incredibly impactful when you watch the characters realize a bomb is going to be dropped on them. Yeah, exactly. And it keeps it connected to the original film. That's what makes the movie so good. Like, in a lot of ways, it is a remake of the original film. This might be unpopular, but I really don't want to see a sequel to Shin Godzilla. No, I agree completely. Actually, anytime someone brings up a sequel, I just kind of roll my eyes because this isn't the type of movie you for a sequel. Like, what do? You just have Godzilla destroy things again? Because I definitely don't see Shin Godzilla fighting a monster. That's just too weird. Like, that's something you reserve for traditional Godzilla, like in the MonsterVerse. but not like this weird, disgusting, mutated, horrifying monstrosity that can shoot lasers out of his back and his tail and stuff. That's not the type of Godzilla that fights other monsters. So my opinion is leave it be. It's a one and done, perfect movie. No sequel needed. The shot where Godzilla destroys the helicopter with the official then is so punchy. I love it for how terrible it feels. What are those things coming out of his tail? Well, it's my understanding that, Godzilla is constantly mutating. So it's kind of like the next evolutionary step forward. Like if Godzilla were to keep going, if they even say that in the movie, he's gonna evolve into millions of other little creatures that kind of fly and walk and stuff. So that's what that is. I look at it more metaphorically though. If we all had the same opinions on every Godzilla film, or any film for that matter, things would get really boring pretty fast. Yeah. Like I said, as long as people can agree to have different opinions, then it's great. And I would like to think most people are mature enough to be able to do that. All right. How long have we been going? Only almost 2 hours. We're not even through this. Whew, I gotta do this before it gets dark. Because it gets dark faster on here now. Alright, next. Godzilla vs. Destoroyah. We'll put that another B. That's a movie that I used to have a super, super high opinion of. But it's kind of lessened over time, but I still really like it. I mean, it's a good finale to the Heisei series. And Destoroyah is a really, really cool and interesting, designed monster. Kind of goes out in a disappointing way, but still. The most overrated Godzilla movie, Destoroyah sucks. Yeah, and then you want to talk about homages. There's pretty much a whole sequence that just rips straight out of Aliens. It's even got the little mouth. Mike's Monsters knows how much of an Alien fan I am. Does anybody see the facehuggers on my TV? Is the Heisei era still your favorite era? I'd probably say so. It's got some of my favorite entries. Biollante, Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla. I got a soft spot for Space Godzilla, and I still like Destoroyah. It's just not quite as oh my god, this is the greatest Godzilla movie ever, like a lot of people used to say. And let's be honest, the final fight with Destoroyah is kind of okay. It suffers from a lot of the problems that Heisei films do, which that the suits are so big and bulky and cumbersome that they're kind of reduced to kind of just going and when they're not beam spamming, of course. Me personally, I do like the beam spamming stuff of it, so I like the spectacle of it, so I don't really mind it. But when they get up close, that's when things get a little wonky. And of course, there's that scene where Destoroyah's first form is revealed for the first time, and you have Ifukube's amazing score. That's another thing. Ifukube's score in Destoroyah is fantastic. The one part I don't like is Destoroyah's death. Yeah, it's so random. He just gets taken out by the Super X3. He's that weak. He's supposed to be the embodiment of the Oxygen Destroyer, and he can just be taken out that quickly. Godzilla's death is brutal. He just melts away. Yeah. I cried when he died. I admit it. Alright, moving on. What we got next? Godzilla vs. Gigan. We're gonna go with B with this one again. Lots of B's. B's a solid grade. Always really liked Godzilla vs. Gigan. I think it's got great monster fighting in it. I used to watch it all the time with my brother because it's got that tag team aspect to it. Um, a lot of stock footage, but it's okayly implemented. Gigan is a great monster, obviously. We all love Gigan. Um, I also actually really like the human cast in Godzilla vs. Gigan. I think it's one of the stronger casts. Um, I think the main character, the manga artist, I forget his name. He's like, I don't know. I just saw him about him I always like. He's kind of a jerk. But and I like his girlfriend too, the karate chick. And of course, who doesn't love the I can't remember all their names, but um the two people that ask him to help them out and the guy with the long hair, the hippie looking guy. I love that guy. The scene where he sticks him up with the corn cob, that's burned in my brain. That scene is just funny to me. And it's got solid like it's got a lot of action. Again, a good amount of stock footage with it, but it's if you're looking for like just a good Godzilla fight movie, it's pretty good. Oh yeah, the whole musical track is basically stock footage as well. They didn't even try with that one, if I remember correctly, which is not a problem because it all sounds great, so you can't really complain. Okay, up next, Godzilla vs. Hedorah. This is a C movie for me. Godzilla vs. Hedorah is a movie where I really, really, really like the ideas behind it. I like the experimentation. I like the concept of Hedorah itself, and even the execution. The execution is great. It's one of the best suits and the best effects of the era. But as a movie, it just kind of boring. I'm gonna be honest. Characters are not good. Like it's one of its weakest aspects, and they're really dumb too. Hey guys, let's have a party up on a mountain. The world's ending. Let's have a party. I understand the commentary that they were trying to make with that, but because the movie's very critical of like the youth at the time, from what I understand. The music is not very good as well, right, Skidoo? And the fights just are very languid. That's the best way I can describe it. Hedorah is great, the execution is great, but the fights just don't have energy to them. There's lots of times where they're just standing around, kind of like Godzilla's going like this all the time, like. And I get the idea behind it. They're kind of like having like a standoff. They're communicating with each other, but it's just it's not doesn't there's no energy to it. It's not exciting. But I do appreciate it as an entry in the series in and of itself because it's so experimental. Like I can not like a movie but still appreciate its existence. Hedorah fits that perfectly. Oh yeah, and the brutality of it too. I appreciate that as well. Like the movie's like kiddie, but at the same time it's like the most brutal entry in the series. People getting their flesh melted off their bones and suffocated by acid spray and all that. Like drowned by sludge. I mean, it's not super graphic or anything, but it's definitely the kind of stuff you don't usually see in a Godzilla movie. It's kind of funny how they went from Godzilla's Revenge to the horrific scenes in Her vs. Hedorah, complete 180. Yeah. Well, at the same time, not because it still focuses on like a kid and everything. It's very strange. The film where Godzilla flies, crazy stuff. Yeah. All right. Up next is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. I'm gonna give this one. You know what? I'm gonna give this one an A. Maybe slightly controversial to say that, but oh, Brandon B with $5 super chat. hope you all have a great. Hope you have a great 2021. You too, Brandon. As a fellow Brandon, happy 2021 to you as well. And thank you very much for the super chat. But yeah, I unapologetically like Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Okay, there I said it. I like the time travel stuff. I don't care how it doesn't make any sense. Sure, but I like it. I like the Godzilla origin story. I like the future, the idea of people from the future coming back to the past to alter things. I like the political subtext. It's not all super consistent. It may have some kind of problematic things going on, but I just like the movie. Like it's super entertaining, and I love the flip where Godzilla is like a thing we got to get rid of, but then something worse comes along, and then we need Godzilla back. So then he kills the worst thing, but then Godzilla is actually worse than him. So now we got to bring back our previous enemy to fight him. Like I just love the like quadruple role reversal going on in the movie. Like it's Godzilla at his most Godzilla-y. He is an anti-hero. He's on our side when he wants to be on our side. As soon as that's not the case anymore, we're his enemy. Don't like what they did with Ghidorah's origin story? I could see that. It's definitely a step down from the extraterrestrial angle, but for this specific story, I think it works. The scene where the soldier turned businessman stares down Godzilla thinking he will spare him, but he gets blasted by his tongue breath. Very powerful. Yeah. I did a whole video on that, so if you're interested and you haven't seen that, check it out on the channel. And of course, M11. Like, he's great. The scene where he's like chasing them when they're driving. It's so cheesy, but I love it. So yeah, it's got a lot of flaws, but it's just super entertaining to me. I can't really. It's as simple as that. All right, moving on. We got the original Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. We're gonna give this one. We're gonna go A with this one as well. The original Mechagodzilla is a great Showa era entry. It's got. It's got a great villain, both Mechagodzilla and the leader of the ape people. The action is super fun. The special effects are great. The Mechagodzilla as a special effect, like, is great. Like the suit really works really well. The music by Masaru Sato, great. It's just a super fun movie. I remember watching it all the time. I mean, the one lady's song when she's awakening King Caesar goes on too long, but and King Caesar seems a little. He's definitely a strange entry in the series, but it works for the story. I prefer Terror over Mechagodzilla. Yeah, people vary on them because they're so different, which I actually think is interesting. It's also interesting that there have been two duology Mechagodzilla duologies. That's interesting. And it's interesting how you have the two. You have the more kind of campy, colorful, lighthearted Mechagodzilla, and then you have the more somber, dark, a little more thoughtful Terror of Mechagodzilla. And so, depending on your taste, you might like more and more than the other. Me personally, I like Mechagodzilla more than Terror, even though the final like 15 minutes of Terror are phenomenal. Yeah, that's another difference between the two of them. Is Godzilla has an ally in the original, whereas Mechagodzilla has the ally in Terror. You know, let's just go right to Terror from here. Where's Terror Mechagodzilla? I'm gonna go B with this one. I find the movie to be kind of dull for most of it. I don't find the love story to be particularly well done because it feels so kind of rushed. And I think the main character only really likes the chick. Like, he has no reason to be into her other than the obvious, which is a valid reason, I guess. But I just don't find the love story to be particularly engaging. I feel like maybe if the movie was like 10 minutes longer and they were able to add a little more substance to it, it would have worked. But the final fight is great, and it has one of the best city destruction scenes. When Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus go to town, and there's that scene where he's like using his missile fingers to just blow everything up, and you see like the ground rise up and everything. It's so good. Terra has the best Godzilla entrance of all time. Yeah, it's definitely up there. Terra has amazing fight scenes, but a weaker story that tries to stay too serious. That's a good way to put it. So yeah, out of the two Mechagodzilla Showa movies, I prefer the first one a lot more. But Terror of Mechagodzilla's got really good stuff in it. But to each their own. Right, and if Fukube comes back for Terror, and he does some pretty good stuff as well. Fun fact: the final battle was entirely supposed to be in Tokyo City, but they changed it to a countryside. I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense though. Saves on budget. Also, another thing: Terror of Mechagodzilla was the only Godzilla movie with a female scriptwriter, which makes a lot of sense. But from what I understand, she had to compromise a lot on it. If I remember correctly, hearing like her script originally had more to it, but they had to cut stuff for budget. It also has a great ending scene where Godzilla wades off into the water. It's like a perfect way to end the Showa series. Like, where Godzilla doesn't die, he kind of just like, all right, peace, I'm out. It's almost like a meta aspect to it. All right, continuing on with Mechagodzilla, we got Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. We're gonna go A with this one. Um, the movie's not perfect by a long shot. I've heard a lot of criticisms of it that are valid. Um, One, for example, is Miki Sagusa's sudden like I care about Godzilla all of a sudden. Like, up until this movie, she's had there's been like no inclination that she's got any sort of like personal stake in whether Godzilla is dead or not. And all of a sudden she's got a problem with pulling the trigger. I don't know. It seems a little forced. But that being said, though, I never questioned it when I was a kid, so I don't know. But the movie packs a punch where it counts, and that's the fact that there's just so much monster action. It's just so much. And as somebody who can enjoy the mindless monster action, you definitely get your money's worth with this movie. It has its flaws, but it's still a very enjoyable movie overall. Yeah, kind of, I would agree with that. The almost final movie in the Heisei era. Yep, they were originally going to end it there. I can't remember if they were going to end it with Godzilla being dead, or if they were just going to end it the way they did, where Godzilla kind of just goes off with his new son. That's another thing I like about it is they bring back one thing I like about the Heisei era in general is they kind of reimagine the classic characters, and that includes the son of Godzilla, Minya. And I think Heisei does it better than any other era. It looks like Godzilla, but at the same time, it doesn't look like an abomination like Minya did. It's like a nice balance, and they continue that going. I mean, they kind of do a misstep with Space Godzilla. He's a little too cutesy, but at the same time, I'm very endeared to Little Godzilla. But Destroya, Godzilla Jr., that's like the perfect version of Son of Godzilla. I like how Mechagodzilla 2 tries to connect Godzilla's two biggest enemies. Yeah, I also like how they reimagine Rodan. it used to be my favorite design, but I think I've likened to it a little less these days. But I always liked how they gave him his heat beam. They gave every villain a beam back then. Godzilla Jr.'s light years better than Minion. Oh yeah, that goes without saying. And this is coming from a guy who actually likes Minion. And there is a vague kind of theme to like nature overcoming the technological advancements of mankind in Mechagodzilla 2. It's not super deep or anything, but it's there. Make it grew to understand Godzilla. That's what you cared. Yeah, I understood that, but it's just there's no like moment. I guess you could connect it with Baby Godzilla. I don't know. Maybe I have to rewatch it again to really see. But I think looking back on it, it's not quite as coherent as it could have been. So yeah, that's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Next up is Megaguirus. This one's gonna go in the C category for me. Um, I don't know. Megaguirus is a weird one. There's a lot of cool and interesting ideas going on in there, but the execution is just very lacking. Like, I don't find the final fight between him and Megaguirus to be particularly good, and I really, really hate the weird frame rate shots. That's a personal irritant of mine. Anytime a film does that, I hate it. I don't care what the reason is for it. I hate it. I hate it when they do it in King Kong 2005 when Peter Jackson does it, and I hate it in Megaguirus. And Megaguirus is kind of like a vague enemy, like a bland enemy. It's just a giant bug. Like we've seen that before. She's got some cool stuff to it, but the best scene actually is when Godzilla fights those swarms of Meganula or whatever they're called. And yeah, Oshima's score is great as well. That's like the best thing about the movie. Fun fact is the Megaguirus and GMK I watched on the Sci-Fi Channel for the first time. Before they came out in video, Sci-Fi got the rights for them and aired them. I recorded them on my VHS player with a blank tape until they came out on DVD, and that's how I got them that way. But yeah, the whole concept of using like a black hole to kill Godzilla is a cool and interesting concept. I just don't feel like they go as far as they could have with it. More than anything, it's just the overall vibe of the movie. It just doesn't stand out. It's just one of those bland movies. Remember the Godzilla pile driver? Yeah, and it's not very well done. And it's not silly in the way like the drop kick is in Megalon, where it's like amazing. It's just like Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to like Megaguirus more as well. But rewatching as an adult, I was just like, this isn't doing it for me. All right, next up is Space Godzilla. We'll give this one a B. Space Godzilla's got undeniable flaws to it. It is undeniably kind of a hackneyed movie. The whole spy plot is pointless, pretty much. But I really like the character Yuki. I think is his name. I always liked him chasing Godzilla around with that blood coagulant bullet, even though it's nonsensical. Like, I always just liked that plot. Like, it's just entertaining. And then I think the final fight with Godzilla and Moguera versus Space Godzilla, it's entertaining. And I also think the score is pretty good too. Like, I can still hum some of those scores. Like, it's an interesting thing. Like, if you watch a movie when you're like a kid a lot, what does that say? Is that a bad movie? Because I watch Space Godzilla a lot. So it's an interesting question. Like, I try to be objective, but at the same time, I can't be completely objective. I think that's really what it is for me. It's just a personal favorite of mine, but at the same time, I'm not gonna like put it out there with like A or S or anything like that. Hated the shower scene. Yeah, that was weird. When you get butt shots in a Godzilla movie, it's totally unnecessary. One of the weaker films in the Heisei series, but still entertaining. Yeah, that's kind of like the most sufficient way to put it. Okay, next up, Godzilla versus the Sea Monster slash Ebirah Horror of the Deep. I guess I'll go C with this one. See, this is kind of a similar thing, but the opposite of Space Godzilla, where just I actually used to watch this movie a lot when I was a kid, but now after watching it for the first time as an adult, I was just like, it's fine. Characters I would say are actually pretty decent for a Godzilla movie, but I don't know. The movie just didn't really capture my attention the way I thought it would, because it used to a lot. Have I read Godzilla's Half Century War? Yeah, I've got it on my Kindle. Also, Ibra is a super boring enemy. Not that the enemy makes a movie, but Ibra has a big problem. It's not really a Godzilla movie. Yeah, that's a thing too. Godzilla doesn't really act like himself in the movie because he's supposed to be King Kong. But it's got this. It does have a. John Fukuda does add a energetic kind of James Bondy style to it, which he did in a lot of his movies. Because he was, to be frank, more of a James Bond fan than he was a Godzilla fan. But it's an interesting angle to take it. Godzilla doesn't even appear until 54 minutes in. Yeah, and then after that, all he does is like fight Ebirah like a couple times. He fights the giant condor, R.I.P. And he stomps on a factory. So yeah, Ibra Horror of the Deep, it's okay. Godzilla King of the Monsters, put this in A. Anybody who's been watching the channel for a while probably knows that when I first saw it, I was kind of like, I didn't know how to feel about it. I was kind of lukewarm about it. And I think part of that was expectations. This has always been something that I've dealt with my whole life. Is if you built up hype in your mind for something that you're looking forward to, and eventually you start to come up with expectations about what it is. Especially if you listen to the soundtrack beforehand, which I did. It's always been a mistake of mine. If I listen to the soundtrack, it's a huge mistake because you start to create scenes in your mind that accompany the music. But then you see the movie, and the scene that is accompanying the music is completely different than what you imagined. And even if it's good, there is a sense of disappointment. This happened to me even with like really good movies, like The Dark Knight, as a random example. Like the movie when I saw it, but there was a part of me that was a little disappointed because it wasn't the movie I had in my head. And that's what happened with King of the Monsters. So I had to see it a few times to kind of to actually form a legit opinion about it over my expectations. Love the spiritual video on Godzilla. Excellent video. Thank you, JT Saints. And it's definitely a super flawed movie. But you know what Godzilla movie isn't really? Like, it's just strange to kind of hold that against King of Monsters when there's so many Godzilla movies that I like that have flaws to them. And there's so many things I like about the movie. I just like the world of the movie. Like, I like being in it. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it. Like, it's a monster verse movie. Like, it's a movie full of monsters. It's about monsters. It's about their place, our place in the world beside them. And it's super silly, and it's got some cringy moments in it. That's for sure. The whole gonorrhea joke, so bad, terrible, terrible. keeping that in there. I almost I almost went in and tried to edit it out just for fun to see if it would work. I ended up not doing it because it's kind of pointless. Can't wait to pick Mike D's brain during lunch. I bet. You coming in here to brag a little bit, Mike? Eh. I hope your meeting goes well. I really enjoyed the Rodan versus the fighter jet scene. Yeah, that's one of the best scenes in the movie. Sometimes I just go back to rewatch that scene. It's so good. I really don't like Mothra's design. I don't want size in my Moth Kaiju. Yeah, and the soundtrack by Bear McCreary, who's a friend of the channel, I can happily say, um, is phenomenal. And as you've anybody who's seen my spiritual video has knows, the movie does have substance to it. It's substance within a kooky crazy B movie, and that's great. Serizawa's sacrifice is a great scene. Kind of wish it would have happened maybe a movie or two later when we understand his character more, know him a little more. But that's besides the point. I wonder if Bear's watching this right now. I doubt it. He's a busy man. I don't begrudge that at all. Isn't Bear friends with AVGN too? I wouldn't be surprised. The guy seems very friendly and is very like connected to like online communities and stuff, which is awesome. So I'm gonna move on because I've said my piece about King of the Monsters. If you anybody here who hasn't seen any of my many videos about it, you can watch those. Godzilla vs. Biollante, that goes in A. This is one of my personal favorites. It's so unique, it's so poetic. It's got flaws as well. Uh, some of the scenes are not particularly well done. The English speaking characters are horrendous, but Bear did the score for the AVGN movie. I did not know that. That's interesting. And I mean, Biollante. I mean, what can I say about Biollante? Watch the movie. Easily one of the best executed creatures of the Godzilla series. She still holds up. Both her rose form and her final form. It looks amazing. Like it is a special effects uh, work of art, and she's so scary looking, but also is the good guy, which is an interesting dichotomy. And then there's whole like, and if you're looking for a movie with Godzilla in it, oh man, does Godzilla vs. Biollante have tons of Godzilla in it? Like once he appears pretty early on in the movie, and once he does, he's in it a lot. So if you're looking for a movie, like Biollante pretty much like matches all the criteria. Like if you're looking for a movie with just lots of monster action, you're gonna get it. You're looking for a movie with lots of Godzilla in it, you're gonna get it. You're looking for a movie with cool and interesting concepts, you're gonna get it. You're looking for a Godzilla movie with some substance, you're gonna get it. That's why it's so high up for me and for a lot of people, because it just checks all those things. And things happen in the movie uh, that are super surprising and kind of dark. Like I don't know about you guys, but when Shiragami gets assassinated at the very end, I was shocked the first time I saw that. Like that is not expected. Like he's one of the main characters, and he just gets taken out like that. Brutal. Do you prefer Biollante or Mechagodzilla 2? Biollante easily. Biollante needs another Blu-ray print run. Yeah, that's a shame. And that's another thing. The movie pushed the special effects. Like, it was a special effects extravaganza back in the day. Like, the rest of the AC films kind of started to stagnate, but Biollante really like pushed the art form. All right, moving on. Godzilla vs. Mothra from the Heisei series. We'll give this one a B. um, it's Godzilla vs. Mothra is, I'd say, a low B. Um, the special effects in this movie are not that good. Like, this movie really suffers from the whole like floaty flying monsters where their wings are barely moving. Melody with the $2 super chat. Thank you. What's your opinion on cutting the flower scene? Kind of a shame because it's cool, but I guess it was a little too. Special effects were a little too out there for them for that. I do like the inclusion of Batra into the Mothra mythos. I think that's super interesting. The movie is also a very blatant Indiana Jones ripoff, which again, that's fine. The Heisei films were doing that all throughout. I will say that I do kind of like the whole divorced parent plotline. I think it's handled fairly well. Um, that being said, the main guy is a dubious moral character. The way he's willing to sell the show beach and basically human trafficking, like that's pretty dark. But then they kind of treat it very nonchalantly. Like, how can you go back to somebody that's willing to do something like that? Like, that's terrible. I watched it for Batra's character arc. Yep, monster arcs. Only the Japanese do that, and it's great. The fights are too beam heavy for this film, in my opinion. Yeah. Can't get enough of the Mothra song. That's true. And this movie does have a pretty banging version of that song. Godzilla vs. Mothra 92 is my second least favorite film in the Heisei era and one of the most boring films in the series. Yeah, it's just more standard pro-environmental stuff. I'm probably being pretty generous when I put it at B, but that's just in my nature. Alright, moving on because it is getting dark outside. Godzilla vs. Megalon, we're gonna put this in B. Godzilla vs. Megalon is silly, glorious, silly fun. There's really no other way to say it. It is terrible, but it is terrible in a good way. The monster fight is basically like the greatest wrestling match. Like, more than any other Godzilla film, Godzilla vs. Megalon, it feels like a wrestling match. And I think Megalon is another interesting kaiju. He's got some interesting abilities, of course, and of course there's Jet Jaguar, the indispensable Jet Jaguar, icon of the series, who's actually kind of like the main character of the movie more than Godzilla is, or the main monster, I should say. Yeah, I put this B totally knowing like the character's bad, little kid annoying, setup pretty basic, but it's entertaining. What can I say? Godzilla vs. Megalon is the pinnacle of the late Showa era. It really is. It's no surprise that they kind of did a reboot after that with Mechagodzilla, because that was like pinnacle late cheap Showa era Godzilla. And of course, there's a dropkick. What else can be said about the dropkick? Iconic. Alright, next up is Godzilla slash Gojira, and of course that goes to S. That goes without saying. Everybody in here knows why that's S. It's the movie that started it all. It's the movie that helped birth an entire genre. It's we wouldn't be here without this movie. I wouldn't be here talking to you right now without this movie. It is as near perfect as a Godzilla movie as you can get. It is poetic, it is thoughtful, it is thematic. The black and white is cinematography enhances and makes it haunting. The music is phenomenal. Like, it's that simple. Is there any nitpick I have with Gojira? I mean, I would say that the characters aren't particularly like that great, but I mean, that's the type of movie. Like most monster movies, you're not gonna get super complex, deep characters. So I don't know if I can hold that against it. Is that like a nitpick? I don't know. Some special effects shots probably aren't that good. Thankfully, it's in black and white, so it's not quite as noticeable. So yeah, that's Gojira. We're moving on because everybody knows how awesome that movie is. Godzilla raids again. Should I make this F? I feel like that's too mean. I feel like no Godzilla is a total F. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna go D with this one. Godzilla raids again. I mean, to be fair, I've only seen it the once, all the way through. But more than anything, the reason why I'm not particularly fond of this movie is that I just don't find it entertaining. It's boring. The monster fights, everybody knows that they screwed up with the filming of it, and it's like super sped up. And while it does give it like kind of an animalistic quality, it robs it of like gravitas. Like it just looks like two guys in suits kind of like scrapping it out. Like I feel like a lot of people haven't even watched this movie. It's possible. It's always been very hard to get in the United States in its pure form, so that probably contributes to it. Kaiju fan 1954, why are you spamming what happened to Sam the Gigan fan over and over and over again? I don't know what you're talking about. Can you please stop? What makes it avoid F tier? I mean, F is like a total failure, and I don't feel like any Godzilla movie is a total failure. Like there's good stuff in Raids Again. Anguirus is cool. He's iconic, in my opinion. Um, there's some interesting ideas in terms of like luring Godzilla with like light and stuff. And like burying him in the ice, that's an inventive way of like taking care of the problem. But I just mostly find it kind of dull. Only watch the Japanese version. Yeah, I hear Gigantus the Fire Monster, or whatever, is not good. The inmates crashing and bringing back Godzilla makes me laugh. Yeah. It's like, dude, come on. Yeah, the final solution of encapsulating him in an iceberg is good. All right, moving on. We got King Kong versus Godzilla. This one's gonna be A. King Kong versus Godzilla is another milestone film. Without it, we wouldn't be here. Like, it really set the formula. Godzilla versus, or in this case, King Kong versus whatever. Like, the idea of Godzilla fighting another monster started with this movie. like in earnest. Obviously, that happened in Raids Again, but uh, this is the movie that really like started it because obviously it took many years after Raids Again for them to really start making these versus movies. Mothra vs. Godzilla kind of took it further, but it started with King Kong vs. Godzilla, and without King Kong, Godzilla would still be like a two movie monster. Like he never would have become the icon that he is. Like he owes a lot to King Kong. Let's all be honest here. And you also got to watch the movie within a certain way because it is a comedy. So if you're going in expecting like a super serious movie, you're going to be disappointed. You gotta view it through the lens of satire. Now that being said, you got things like King Kong's design, which is terrible, and some special effects don't quite hold up. But that's just surface level stuff. The final fight on Mount Fuji is one of the best fights in the series. Both monsters have very distinct personalities that play off each other really well. Like Godzilla's kind of like the jerk who gets off on hurting people, and Kong is like the lovable underdog who like gets drunk. It's like it's really fun. All right, guys, I'm gonna turn the light on. All right, I'm not in the dark anymore. Now, if we can only get a trailer for the next one, yeah. Think we'll get a trailer this year? There's not a single dull moment in King Kong vs. Godzilla. It's arguably just as important as 1954 in terms of influence. Yeah, it is. Just like that's because King Kong himself is super, super important in the long run. Like, because King Kong really started the genre, or birthed it, I should say. Godzilla started it. King Kong birthed it. Is it bad that I actually like the 1962 Kong suit? No. You can like what you like. It's just pretty raggy looking. And it's got King Kong vs. Godzilla's also got one of the best characters, Mr. Taco. He's a personal favorite of mine. That man's so ridiculous. And I like both cuts, honestly. I mean, I haven't watched the American cut in a long time, but I remember not not being particularly peeved with like the UN sequences where you go to the reporter or anything like that. Again, that's probably just nostalgia, though. That's the version I watched for pretty much all of my life until the Japanese cut. Weird how Mecha Kong actually predates Mecha Godzilla. Yeah, it's interesting how in that way King Kong is also before Godzilla. It should scare you beyond belief that Godzilla vs. Kong is coming out in a matter of months with no trailer. Yeah, that's super unusual. That's what's... It's like, are they actually going to release this movie in May? We have like 5 seconds of footage. And you're releasing a movie in 5 months with 5 seconds of footage. Like, what is going on? Like, I seriously don't... I don't know. Like, is there... I don't want to be like an alarmist or anything, but it's just very strange. Like, are they not confident in this movie? Like, I know King of the Monsters underperformed at the box office, but this might be the longest I've ever listened to the Godzilla vs. Megalon soundtrack. Me too. Of course, I can't hear it myself, but I won't be surprised if we get one more delay. Me either. Just do it. Whatever. Delay the movie. I've heard the Jet Jaguar theme song way too many times now. That's impossible. You can't hear the Jet Jaguar theme too many times. You heard that they might only release the movie on HBO Max exclusively. I mean, that's originally, well, they were gonna say it was gonna be theaters and HBO Max, but now they're in like a legal dispute with Legendary, so who knows what's gonna go on with that. I think they're confident. They just want the deal figured out first. Hopefully. All right, we got two more. Up next, Mothra vs. Godzilla. This is gonna go in A tier. This is again following King Kong vs. Godzilla. This is the movie that really established the formula. King Kong started it. Mothra vs. Godzilla established it. You know, because King Kong versus Godzilla was super successful, so Toho was like, hey, let's do this again. What's another monster we got? Oh, Mothra, she's super popular. She had her own movie. Oh, let's have her fight Godzilla. And distinctly her fight Godzilla. Because remember, Godzilla's not top billed in this movie, just like he wasn't in King Kong. It's Mothra. Mothra was actually more of the household name back then, which is really interesting. It's interesting how it kind of Godzilla grew organically into becoming like the top tier monster. When at the beginning he had his original movie, it was super successful. Then they made a sequel. It did okay, but not enough for them to keep going, so they stopped for a long time. Then to celebrate the studio's anniversary, they did King Kong vs. Godzilla, and that was so successful that they continued going on. And Mothra vs. Godzilla's got a lot going for it. It's got an amazing soundtrack. Mothra is one of the most well executed creatures. Still holds up to this day. Godzilla, one of the best portrayals of Godzilla. Not one of my favorite designs personally, but in terms of like his role in the story, he's like a force of nature in this movie more than like any other. Like he just rolls through everything. To the point where he rolls through Mothra. Like Mothra doesn't stand a chance against him. The only blemish with Mothra vs. Godzilla is after Godzilla defeats Mothra and the larva hatches, that finale goes on way too long. It seriously dampens the film. Godzilla wasn't the star of his own series until late Showa. It's kind of weird to think of. Yeah. I wouldn't say late Showa, it'd be like mid Showa. Like he started becoming the star around like Invasion of Astro Monster, Ebera. Even then, Ebera was supposed to be a King Kong movie, not a Godzilla movie. So I just love how he bursts from the earth as an introduction. Right. Yeah, he's literally like nature's wrath in that movie. Mothra is the benevolent side of nature. Godzilla is the malevolent side of nature. And I like how the implication is like Godzilla's like just grumpy. Like he just woke up from his nap and he's tripping over everything. He's very clumsy in this movie. His head catches on fire. He's falling over things. His tail gets caught in things. It adds personality. The film's got a great theme, like theme to its story. The film has some of the best city destruction scenes in the whole franchise. Yeah. The movie's just super solid entry all around. Ending aside, which is definitely holds the film back. In fact, in that way, I'd probably say it's more of like a lower A, because that ending really does suck the wind out of the sails in the movie. Yeah, he just wants breakfast. He wants eggs. Right, the film's also got two great human villains. They're caricatures, but they work well. And I don't doubt for a second that people like that exist in the real world. The biggest issue is this recycles the original Mothra plot. Yeah, it is kind of just the same thing. We gotta kidnap the Shobijin. Mothra doesn't like that. What can you do, though? They did that with a lot of the King Kong movies, too. King Kong vs. Godzilla is like kind of like half of the movie is like a remake, pseudo remake of the original. All right, final one. And it happens to be Son of Godzilla, a personal favorite of mine. This is going to go A easily. Um, Son of Godzilla is a movie that shouldn't be as good as it is. Because you got a really, really horrible design, both for Godzilla and Minya. The movie's set on an island just for the sake of keeping the budget low. And yet it's got an interesting premise with the whole like scientists on an island trying to change, like experiment with weather and stuff. Like that's cool and interesting. I always really liked that angle when I was a kid watching it. um, the island setting in general is just really cool and unique. I think it's handled better here than it is in Ibera. Um, and then of course you've got Kamakris and Kumanga, which are just really well executed creatures. The puppetry in them is just amazing. Like they hold up. They still hold up. And the fact that they interact with the human characters. You know, most Godzilla movies, the monsters are kind of like on the outside. The humans kind of watch from afar. But these creatures are interacting with the people. Kumanga is hunting people and trying to eat them. Like, so that adds a real tension to the movie. I remember the first time watching it when I was a kid, being on the edge of my seat in parts of this movie. Thank you, Michael Haxon. Plus, Sato scores some fun stuff. Yeah, his score is really good. And the interactions between Minnie and Godzilla are genuinely endearing. Like they're cute. Like you can't help but kind of go aw when you watch them. And then there's the ending where Godzilla is, you know, the island is being covered in snow. Godzilla is kind of being the jerk dad that he usually is, the hard dad. And he's walking. He's like, Minya, you're on your own. And then, but Minya can't catch up because he's slow. And then he falls in the snow and he's just like, cries out for his dad. And Godzilla turns around. He comes back for him. He hugs him. And then they hibernate together as the snow falls around them. It's a great ending. Like, it's one of the best, most poetic images in the series. There's a lot of heart to that movie. Heart and tension. So yeah, that's why that movie is has a particular soft spot for me. A perfect film to end the tier list. I agree. So as you can see from my list, I think this is a pretty decent tier list going on here. I got mostly A's, so I think I'm being pretty generous with my list here. A's and B's, mostly all around. We got our two S tier films up here. Then we got some D's, good handful of C's, but it's mostly A's and B's. None got F tier, which is a huge plus. Yeah, I can't be that mean. There's no Godzilla movie I hate that much. Like F is fail. And I don't think any of them are outright failures. Thanks for the stream up from those. You're very welcome, Justin Toner. Now, as has been pointed out a couple times in the chat, this stream has gone on for over 3 hours. It's gone on longer, a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought I was going to be able to breeze past this tier list pretty quickly, but I guess once you get talking about it, the time can go pretty fast. So I think we're going to end it here because it's getting pretty late where I'm at. But this has been fun. We're gonna, as usual, I will continue doing weekly streams once I'm done with my little mini break here. And then you guys can also expect new content to start arriving within the coming weeks. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to my channel, has watched my content over the years, and helped me get to this point. I really appreciate it and appreciate every one of you. Thank you to everybody who actually came to the stream. Thank you to everybody who stuck around this whole time. As you all know, we've got some good stuff to look forward to this year. We got Godzilla Singular Point. We've got, hopefully, Godzilla vs. Kong. So there's going to be a good amount to talk about, and I'm looking forward to experiencing it all with you guys. So with that, I will say sayonara, and I hope you all have a great, healthy, and successful year. Take care.